afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from the United States to all around the world. Welcome. Welcome to NMTV Talk Show program. I am your host, Dr. Nana, and my co-host is Dr. Chris Akezi. So, our topics for today are subsistence farming for addressing food insecurity and empowerment of youths in Nigeria. And we will also be discussing the role of financial institutions in empowerment of youths in Nigeria. And our panelists for today are Dr. Jeku Ozemene. Dr. Jeku is a chartered banker, facilitator, Lagos Business School of Pan Atlantic University, and he's also currently the MD CEO, HIV Trust Fund of Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Dr. Jeku. Also joining us today is Professor Gbenga Larinde, Chairman, MOGS 84 alumni, a professor of agricultural sciences, University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. He is a researcher and author of many peer-reviewed articles and books on forest economics. Welcome to the program, Dr. Gbenga. So both panelists will share their views on the role of financial institutions in addressing unemployment and empowerment of youths in Nigeria. In addition, we are also hosting 3 special guests of honors from England, including Dr. Elisha Atai. Dr. Elisha is the president and founder of the African Women in Leadership Organization. Welcome to the program, Dr. Elisha. Also joining us today is Mr. Emeka Osigwe. Mr. Emeka is a graduate of the great University of Ibadan, a mentor and religious leader. He is the owner of Comforter House, Johannesburg. He currently resides in the United Kingdom. Welcome to the program, Mr. Emeka Osigwe. Finally, we have Mr. Richard George, who also joined us from the United Kingdom. Mr. Richard is the Director of Strategy and Leadership, a company in the United Kingdom, a lead consultant, Beam Consult, United Kingdom, and is also a former board member of the Ambrose Ali University, Ekpoma, Nigeria. Mr. Richard resides in the United Kingdom. Welcome to the program, Mr. Richard.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the program once more. We understand that it's echoing back while the production room is trying to take care of that. I will say, let us have a moment to watch a short video of the background about the topic we are discussing today. Dr. Jenku is my childhood friend, just like Professor Gbenga Larinde. And the guest today, one of them is also my senior and mentor. I welcome you all to the program. Let's watch a brief background, short video on what we are doing today.
School in the heart of Benin, Apakpaba Road. I'm here this morning because I came to park my car inside the compound and I saw some children. So I thought maybe it was an abandoned school. Only for me to find out that it's a functional school and kids are actually having class. Right now they're in break. As you can see, it's raining and this is a class where people are. This is a class where people are taking, children are taking lecture. In the heart of Benin, this is a class where children are taking lecture. Something like this is not good. This is not good at all. The government has to come to the rescue of this school right now, because this is appalling. This is really, really appalling. Children are inside the rain. Children inside the rain taking classes in this school. This is an embarrassment to us. This is an embarrassment to Nigeria. This is wrong. This is completely wrong. This is.
You suppose solve their problem. I thank God say coffee use me solve the water problem for these villagers.
Like what we are buying 700, 800 naira before. We even at egg sale, we brought egg 1211, but now it has increased to 15. If you want the egg of your size, the big size increased to 16 now. The small ones are the ones selling 1,004.
Things are very more expensive now.
Dr. Nana, today's topic is about empowerment of youths, and we are looking at also food security in Nigeria. What say you?
Well, I thank you all for joining. We might have a little bit of hitch here and there, but we'll be okay. So today we have all watched a little bit. I'm not sure if you had the but you saw the video. I believe that. I don't know if you heard the sound. I hope you did. We have watched that video clip, and our eyes will not actually deceive us with what we saw. We are here as advocates, not as activists. So there's difference between being an advocate and an activist. So we are not doing any type of activism here, but advocate for something that is right and try to proffer some solutions, possible solutions.
All right. So today's topic, like I said, is on empowerment of youths and food shortage in Nigeria. Dr. Jenku, we have heard also that in Nigeria, it is as easy as going to pick up a candy for people of foreign nationals to get loans from bank. But yet, our youths are being chunked out into the system every year in their thousands as youth corpers. Some of them come with good ideas and initiatives, but they lack collaterals. And most of these people cannot get loans from the Nigerian banks to develop themselves. Dr. Jenku, to open this discussion, can you please help our viewers understand what is, in your opinion, youth empowerment from the perspective of a financial banker?
Thank you so much, Dr. Nana and Dr. Chris. The topic that we're discussing today is quite vast. So I'll try and make it as my contribution as brief as possible. I'll start with the earlier session about accessing finance by young Nigerians or entrepreneurs, the difficulties they face vis-a-vis what foreigners face when they borrow from Nigeria financial institutions. First of all, I think it's important, anytime this debate comes up, it's important that we understand what the local financial institutions are meant to do. So more often than not, when we talk about interventions by financial institutions in Nigeria, we are talking about commercial banks in Nigeria. And the argument is that the young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs generally, local entrepreneurs, find it difficult to access funding from commercial banks in Nigeria. I can't speak so much to the aspect where we referred to, where you mentioned that the foreigners find it easier to access funding, but I suspect I may understand if that is the case, and I'll give you some context to it. First of all, is a misnomer. Is commercial banks are not meant to finance entrepreneurs, or sorry, I'm not meant to finance startups, right? But commercial banks, money deposit banks are not meant to take equity risk. Now, because we need to understand how banks are structured and what they are meant to do, how commercial banks, money deposit banks, and I'll go through the gamut of the other financial institutions and their roles. Money deposit banks are simply custodians of funds. They take depositors' funds. So they go out there in the market, compete and contest for depositors' funds, take that money from the surplus of the economy, and then on-lend it to where there's a deficit, people who need it. The nature of risk they are supposed to take is not equity risk, right? Now, commercial banks charge interest, and we say interest is the premium you charge for taking the risk, the nature of risk you are taking. So in I don't know what they do now, maybe they charge 20% interest rates, and in Nigeria, I don't know what it is right now. But an equity investor will be looking at returns far higher than 18-20% because they are taking an equity risk. For an equity investor, when somebody invests equity in a business, it means that if that business fails, they will lose all their money, right? When an entrepreneur borrows money from a bank, right, and the entrepreneur's business fails, when the depositor comes to collect his money from the bank is obliged to return that money to the depositor. That doesn't happen if that individual invested in a business, okay? So even if the commercial banks wanted to support these entrepreneurs, right, who are taking equity risk, right, invest equity in their business, the license they have will not support it. Their regulator, being the central bank or the other regulators, NDIC, will not support it. They will be sanctioned. However, in every economy, there are financial institutions who have specific roles and responsibilities to make such investments. So you tend to find development finance institutions across all jurisdictions. Every country has them, including Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have the likes of Bank of Industry, we have the likes of Bank of Agriculture, we have the likes of Nexim, we have the likes of Federal Mortgage Bank, we have the likes of Bank of Infrastructure, whose specific responsibility is to take the nature of risk that commercial banks are not supposed to take. In my introduction, Dr. Nana mentioned that I'm the CEO of HIV Trust Fund of Nigeria. So that's, in quote, my day job. But I'm also on the board of a company called Business Partners International, which is an SME finance, almost like a bank, or SME, a risk finance company. And our objective is to lend, invest, and provide technical assistance to companies, particularly SMEs, that money deposit banks will typically not support, right? We operate in 5 African countries wherein we have full-fledged subsidiaries in 5 African countries. We're in Rwanda, we're in Namibia, we're in Malawi, we're in Uganda, we're in Kenya. And yeah, so we're in Kenya. So 5 African countries. Our managing partner is based in South Africa. That's Business Partners International itself. So what we do is that, and we are the Business Partners International East Africa is owned jointly by 6 partners, 5 of which are development finance institutions. These are institutions who have the mandate, who have the capital to undertake that kind of risk. It's not commercial banks. So what we should see, and when we now talk about youth empowerment in Nigeria, how do we empower youth, right? By providing them with funding. One of the things we need to do as a country is begin to look at other models to further capacitate our development finance institutions, some of which I've mentioned, give them sufficient capital, give them sufficient training to, first of all, dimension the nature of risk that they're investing in to make the investments they need to make, right? And then, because, I mean, during the 2008 global financial crisis, we had a popular saying in Nigeria that the return of the money is better than the returns on the money. I mean, you can't be a financial institution and say you're making investments and none of that investment comes back, right? You're expecting huge bumper returns and none of your capital comes back, you go out of business. We have amongst a couple of friends of ours we set up this small, I should call it private equity fund to support some of the guys who are in school with, who are also entrepreneurs. And so we got quite a number of trained guys amongst us to evaluate each business case and lend them money. And I can tell you that it's a struggle. It's a struggle for the money to come back, right? And this is interest-free money. And this is the fact that we have resident expertise in terms of appraisal of investment, appraisal of loans, etc. So you can imagine when you take depositors' funds that you are meant to give back. You are just a custodian, it's not your money. And then you lend it out and it doesn't come back, right? What would these are people's savings, these are people's, these are things, money people have been sorting away all their life. So you have the bank, the commercial bank has the responsibility to ensure that that money goes back to the owner. The central bank has the responsibility to ensure that that money returns to the owner, right? The NDIC, who insures the money, has the responsibility to ensure that that money returns to the depositor. So it's not their role to take that nature of risk. What we should be discussing, if we are focused on empowering our youth by providing them with financial resources, investing in their ideas, is to grow the capacity of the institutions that we have created that are supposed to be responsible for taking these measures, right, to embark on these measures. And the last one thing I would like to add here is that there has also been a debate that's been on for a while in Nigeria that, the reason why these young people who come out, they are not getting enough funding is because the financial institutions don't have long-term funding deposit to lend to them. Because, in equity is not like working capital that you give somebody money for 1 year and he has to repay within a year. Sometimes equity investments, you literally put the money there, you go to sleep. And it's only when the business becomes profitable that you can begin to expect your returns, right? So, but that's not the reality. The reality is that there's a difference between liquidity and risk underwriting. So liquidity is actually the money itself. But the money, who owns the money? Like, I mentioned like the commercial banks. The commercial banks, the money belongs to depositors. Now, what we do in some other jurisdictions is that we then create some structures, what we call unfunded risk participation. So we invite partners who have the capacity to understand and dimension the risk, right? The risk for the entrepreneurs, dimension that risk. But because the money, the liquidity is coming from people's deposits, they have the capacity and the capital to say, okay, we are going to add our guarantee to this loan so that if there is a default to this loan, it's not the bank that will suffer all the loss. I will take up part of the loss. When I mentioned earlier that in Business Partners International, we also provide technical assistance. So because we know the nature of the risk that is being undertaken, we're not just giving them money. No, we can't even go to sleep. You give them the money, you match them with the expertise. In fact, we have a technical assistance fund. So we buy the expertise required to put them through the nature of business they are doing, right? I mean, this is not a guarantee that the business will be successful because it's a business, but yes, it just helps manage better the complexion of the risk.
All right, Dr. Jenko, let me say this. In our last program, Dr. Ukavwe made the point that, like in our world, the first world as to call it, we have what we call social security and all of these places, all these things that make such loans possible in the first world. And he made the point that someone you don't know his whereabouts, how do you loan money to those people? So social security. How is this working? I want you to keep that in mind when I want to go to Professor Larinde right now. But I want you to link social security system as we have it here, whereby people are known in the system. How do you advise from the policy point of view as a leader in the banking sector? What can leaders of the banking sector, how can they work with youth corp leadership, for instance, the youth corpers management board? to try and have these people in the system as they chunk them out, so that even if they loan them, at least when they are going to the system, we can capture them like we have Social Security here. If we cannot capture the entire Nigeria, these people are graduating every year. Is there a way that the banking leadership of the banking sector can capture these youth corpers and then have them in the system so that they can loan them money based on their ideas and what they have to bring into the system, and then use that to give them loans to develop the idea? Keep that in mind. Professor Larinde, you and I grew up in Ibadan. While we were growing up, we heard about Green Revolution. We heard about the other one by Shagari. And during these periods, there was enough food in Nigeria. Everybody ate as they wished. What changed, Professor Larinde? And I'm saying this in the context that within the period, we had more than enough for everybody to eat when we had Green Revolution, and we had Operation Feed the Nation by Obasanjo. So my stepdad actually, and I know you too, when you lived at Agbo, your parents had these gardens in their back. And can you help us, Professor Gwenga, look at this from the policy point of view? What has the government to do and the local authority in this aspect? I mean, give us an idea of what subsistence farming is. Why is it no longer in practice? And what can the government do? Advise us, Professor Larinde. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on this program, Dr. Chris. I want to say that the problem with agriculture in Nigeria is inconsistency of administration. There's not always a follow-up to whatever an administration is doing after it leaves office when the new one comes in. You are talking of Operation Feed the Nation, you are talking of Green Revolution. After that, we had a military takeover and all the existing programs were abandoned. There was no follow-up. So when there's no follow-up, the foundation has been laid, what do you expect? The structure will collapse. Are you getting it? When we talk of subsistence farming, we are talking of the heart of growing food, either plant or livestock, that is individuals or household can consume. And if we check it back in those days when we were growing up, the space in the compound is always there for people to either raise livestock, plant edible crops that the family can fall back on. But nowadays, what we have, when people build their houses, they put interlockings, they do flower beds, and they put ornamentals there. These ornamentals, they don't even take care of them. We have to spend money to start taking care of those things. If in those places that you put ornamental plants to beautify the house, you put vegetable there, like okra, watermelon, and all the rest, the family can fall back on it and eat and make cook soup. This ensures food security in the house. In the absence where you don't have cash, you have something to fall back. In those days, they keep fowls, they keep chickens in the compound that, in a free range, they live on a waste food, leftover and all the rest, and pick it up. These are chickens that will eat even during Christmas period. But nowadays, what do we have? We see people going to buy broilers and all the rest, all these organically modified chicken that have been injected. That's what we see for Christmas period. In those days, people hardly go to market to buy chicken because almost every family has livestock in the compound, whether chicken, whether fowl, whether lamb or goat, it's always in the compound. You understand? But our value change even when we had the oil boom. That is the beginning of our problem of our cultural practices. Before the oil boom, almost all part of Nigeria lived on agriculture. You had the cocoa in the west, you had the groundnut in the north, then you have the oil palm in the east. These were the mainstay of the economy of all those regions. And things were moving on. You check the west, from the cocoa money, they were able to do so many things. Physical infrastructures were developed from it. But things changed when the oil came. I wouldn't know whether I would say oil is a cost to us or not. Because even when you look at national budget now, you will find out that the allocation even to agriculture is nothing to write home about. They allocate money for road, super highways, airports, and all the rest, which don't have direct benefit even to the people, the masses that they are governing. You will see that when people talk, they talk about infrastructural development. They want to attract foreign investment. We are bringing foreign investors. Charity, they say, begins at home. What is what people grow, what they are used to, that they will come and back up to key into. If you have nothing on the ground, there's nothing to key into. I hope you are getting what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say is that we should go back to the basics. Take, for example, in the Southeast, that's what they call the compound farm. There's hardly any compound you get to in the Southeast that you won't see people growing crops, edible crops at the back of their compound. And you hardly find out there's nothing to eat. Within 30, 40 minutes, they can make soup for you to eat from the compound. What we are nowadays, from where we can get back to, solve this problem is, majority of the able handlers even ran away from the rural areas. They are back in the city riding Okadas. Nowadays, when government officials or they do empowerment, what do? They give out bicycles, motorcycles to people to ride. They give them riding machine and all the rest. You can empower the youth in the rural area. Give them the so-called tricycle. When harvest is carried out, most of them get spoiled in the rural area. They don't get to the city. You know, they are perishable goods. When you harvest and you don't take them to where they are needed. When you empower those young able hands in the rural area, give them the tricycle, they can move these food products out and to get to the city or wherever they need to sell and make money, and they put it back. But once you go into farming and you have harvest and you can't get them to sell, that is those that are doing commercial farming anyway. But if it's subsistence farming, you know that you are only raising what you and your family will eat. And trade is not, you are not selling. But when it comes to commercial farming, that is why you find out that people are not encouraged to go into farming. Rather than doing super highways, go and do these rural routes. You find out that prices of food will crash over time.
Professor Gbenga, I see you are my friend, and we've known for over 4 decades, and I've seen your products. But there's one that is especially interesting to me that you may want to divulge to our audience today. And that's the one that these bags that you can literally plant things around your home. I know it used to be the case when we were growing up in Ibadan, where you can plant tomatoes, even in a rented home at Oketunu. When I was living with my stepfather, we used to have just a little garden in the back. So how can Nigerians use this to mitigate the effect of food shortage in the country?
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris. Like I used to tell people complain a lot that they don't have land to plant. That is the excuse people give. But that's what we preach now, that we refer to as urban agriculture. The small space in your compound, you can get used bag of empty bag of rice, cement, collect topsoil and put them. We are so blessed in this country that dropping anything anywhere, it will germinate and start growing without even anybody taking care of it. Now imagine that you deliberately plant for the purpose of harvest and you nurture, you see the result. So in your compound, even I don't know whether you still have those slides that I share with you, whether you can show to the audience. You can have your soil inside the empty bag of rice, empty bag of cement, and you can plant yam, you can plant pepper, you water them, just get a small watering can. Some of us, when you do this, you just find out that most of all these crops takes less than annuals, less than 1 year. Where yam, even pepper, vegetable, all this leafy vegetable and all the okra, you can get them in your compound. Even if you are erected up, even if you have interlocking or your compound is cemented, just place them there. Or you have empty containers of kegs that are leaking, cut them into 2 halves, put soil there, you grow anything there. For example, even in your compound, as a family person, if you have 10 layers, 10 chickens that can lay eggs, you find out that in 3 days, you have a crate of eggs. In just 3 days. And in 30 days, you have 10 crates of eggs, which even the family cannot consume. You can sell and be able to take care of your other needs. Some of us, we generate waste and we get them, put them aside and pay people even to come and carry it. There are some of our waste that can use to feed all these things. You don't have to think of even the feeding cost for some of these livestock that you can have inside the compound in the house. When you have these local fowls, you can get them, your waste from your kitchen, give them the feed on it, they pick insects in the compound. Are you getting it? Giving you even biosecurity against pests and diseases. They consume and turn them into animal protein for you to use.
Thank you, Professor Larinde. Dr. Jenku, I will want you to relate corporate social responsibility with youth empowerment. I want you to advise our leaders in the banking and financial sector what it is, the benefits to their organizations and to the system as a whole, for them to invest into youth empowerment program. Can you lead us in this?
Okay, so I was trying to build a case earlier, and I honestly, having spent 21 years of my life in the banking sector, pure banking sector, right? Before I ventured into other aspects of banking, I will not advise a commercial bank in Nigeria to use depositors' funds, money that doesn't belong to them, to embark on youth empowerment, right? I will not do that. That will be harakiri. That will be suicidal to the depositors. If we want to do youth empowerment, however, then the appropriate institutions who have the capacity and who have the capital, right, that capital that can be deployed at placed at risk to take on ventures, equity ventures, we will then do that. There's another misconception around, because some people will say, oh, Nigerian banks they have capital or they are not adequately capitalized. That's why they are not doing this exercise. No, a commercial bank's capital is meant to absorb the risk that is taken, so that in the event that there's a default in the lending is normal course of business, it can absorb that risk. The commercial bank's capital is not meant to absorb the risk, the equity risk. No. Now, if we are talking about, say, venture capital firms if you are talking about development finance institutions, as I mentioned earlier, if you are talking about private equity firms, if you are talking about impact investors, like the 6 investors who put their money in Business Partners International and enable us to do what we are doing, then I can understand that. But if we say that I should advise commercial banks or financial institutions in Nigeria that are not impact investors or development finance institutions or private equity firms or hedge funds, etc., to engage in capacity development for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, I can do that, and I will do that boldly, but not that they will deploy depositors' funds to do that, because that's is inappropriate. Is technically illegal for them actually to do that. If they can, because one of the things, I mentioned earlier that when we give money to these entrepreneurs, we also provide technical assistance. A lot of times it's not, they have ideas, people have ideas, but somebody defined a professor as somebody who knows so much about so little. In every space, you have people who are experts. Entrepreneurs are always very bullish. They always believe that, that once you put money in this thing, it will work. One of the things we need to do to support them is to get them the right guidance and the right expertise. Whether it's even things as basic as bookkeeping, things as basic as understanding their taxes, things as basic as understanding finance and cash flow projections and all those kind of things. So we get people, things as basic as technology, right? We get people to help them, of course, risk assessment, and we get people to help them to do all that.
Yes,
so that
Dr. Janko, I hear you. I hear from you that they should look at the right institution and go to those institutions. So, Dr. Janko, what is, in simple terms, what institutions should these young people go to, and what should they take over there as needed? I mean, collaterals, as you guys call it. What should they take there? And
I've run through that earlier, but I also want to digress a bit, because there was a question you asked earlier, and you said you had a previous speaker who talked about social security number and how it aids in terms of learning, etc. So I'm going to map that against my on my response. Now, that is just one side of the problem. It's a problem, but it's one side of the problem. Fortunately, because we now have national identification numbers, right, and BVNs, that problem is gradually phasing away, because today in Nigeria, there's literally nothing you can do. You can't do anything without your NIN. You need your NIN for your passport, you need your NIN for your driver's license, you need your NIN for everything you're doing, even to get a telephone line. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to just disappear into thin air, something that was applicable in Nigeria before. But today, so what are the financial institutions that are supposed to support entrepreneurs? And this is not just youth empowerment, because it's not just the youth that require support. They're across all demographics. I mentioned earlier that we have the Bank of Industry. The Bank of Industry is a development finance institution that's owned by the federal government of Nigeria and with other investors. They have the capital, they have the capacity to lend to those kind of people. There are some challenges that I have some problems with their lending model today, but those are some of the things we need to look at rather than ask people to go to the banks. We have a bank called the Development Bank of Nigeria. It's another development finance institution set up by government. It also has been capitalized. I think it's ADB's, African Development Bank, I think it also has shares in it. So some other development finance institutions, their role again is to provide exactly what we are describing when we talk about this supporting entrepreneurs. We have a bank called NEXIM, the Nigerian Export-Import Bank. Every country in the world has an EXIM. What is the role of an EXIM? You have the US EXIM in the US, you have the India EXIM, you have the China EXIM, you have every country. What's the role of the EXIM? The EXIM Bank's responsibility is to support the business of companies, local companies who are manufacturing for exports. They have the capital, they have the technical expertise. Those are the things we should. Then we have, of course, when it comes to real estate, across this scope of real estate, you're under real estate, you have the construction finance, you have the mortgage finance, right? Then you have the securitization, which is what liquefies the mortgage finance. Now, there is a financial institution that we have today called the Federal Mortgage Bank, whose responsibility is to do that. The Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria will be the Fannie Mae and the Freddie Mac that we had in the US in the past, right? Those are their responsibilities. What we should do then is to get the right people into these institutions and put in the right capital to make them work. But if it's to direct people to commercial banks to do that, it means that commercial banks are, remember, commercial banks are private businesses. We have too much expectations from the private sector. We actually think, sometimes we think that the private sector can step in and fill the gap of the government. No, it's not done anywhere, not even in the United States, not even in Europe or even Latin America. Nowhere is it done. These institutions are enumerated here. In all these jurisdictions, they have replicas of those institutions, but they are functioning. So that's where the fundamental problem lies. We talked about agriculture. The professor talked about agriculture earlier. We have the Bank of Agriculture. We have the NESA. It's their responsibility. So the question would then be, why are they not functioning optimally? What do we need to do to get them function optimally so that they can play the role that they are designed to play? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jenku. Thank you for that. Exactly the reason why this program is initiated, to let people information that they need to go to the right places and get the right things that they need to improve themselves. And I thank you for differentiating that. While you are thinking about, there is something that came up in my mind. Here I see some banks partner with people to develop things like gas station, restaurants and those things.
That's right.
There's a particular joint in Ore. Everybody who have traveled from west to east or from east to north would have passed through there. There's those kind of project that I think that thing is still there. Since I was young, when my mom used to take me in trips, that place has been there. What do you think? Which of the banking sector should be able to partner with business people to develop those kind of structure and benefit from it? Dr. Nana, you have something to say?
Okay.
Yes, I think what I saw in 2018 was truly appalling. I know that Dr. Jekyll, right? You really explained everything as it is. Commercial banks are not for all of that are supposed to, like, people are expecting they go to bank without any collateral and they are expecting money. But the information is very key. And that's one of the criteria, one of the aspects, one of the reason why this program is here is to give people the right information they need to know where to go to. Because as you know, when we even came to the United States, we don't have any equity or whatever, but there are places to go and get some loan, because here there is Social Security. That's why you mentioned Social Security at the beginning. So there are private firms working with commercial banks. In fact, we went to one of the commercial banks, they said no, then they referred us to some private institutions. And once you go there with certain criteria, it's not so much, then they will give you XYZ. But this is a system that is arranged, because even if you don't have collateral, you have your name and you know what to do. So in the case of Nigeria, the reason why we are so focused on the youth is because youths are actually the future of any nation. We have seen how the leaders have failed Nigeria so woefully. So our concentration now is not talking to them, because we believe that they know what to do, they are not doing it. So we are talking about the youth to know where to go and how they can empower themselves. If they do empower themselves, then it will be difficult for anyone to use them as political thugs or as armed robbers, or even this kidnapping thing will be reduced. So the information you gave here, right, today is very, very critical. And in 2018, the place you are talking about, from Okene to Abuja, there's a very popular joint where they eat in that. Is it Lokoja they call it? I think it's Lokoja. So when I was in school, because I went to ABU, every time that I have to go by road, there must be a stop there. So in 2018, after several years of graduating, I went there. This place is still like that and worse. And the painful aspect of it is that every of the restaurants there had banks inside, the commercial bank. You will see GTB, this one, that one. They have so many banks there. They just sat on a table and collecting money. Why can't those commercial banks destroy that place and rebuild the place?
And
then ask the restaurants to be paying them. Why are they there collecting the money and not helping the people to develop the place?
And so which banks are supposed to partner with business people to develop that kind of place?
Okay, so I'll take this. I mean, and this is what I've been trying to explain. In finance, we have different aspects of finance. We have investment banking, which is the realm that we are getting into right now, right? Now, within the scope of investment banking, right, we have project finance. Now, project finance is defined as limited recourse finance. Now, why is it called limited recourse finance? There's limited recourse finance because the project is not supported by collateral, right? It's supported by the project itself. It's a project that supports itself. And so in all these jurisdictions, when we talk about, you go to a commercial bank, they refer you to another financial institution, etc. Those are financial institutions, investment boutiques that will provide you with project finance. Now, in project finance, we say that risk is allocated to the partner best suited to bear the risk. So, for instance, that place that you describe now, whether it's Ore or whatever it is, right?
Lokoja and
Lokoja. Okay, Lokoja, for instance. As a project finance person, my first question would then be, what is required to bring this to fruition? We say the land. Who does the land belong to, right? Would tell us. Can the owner of the land provide the land? Maybe the owner of the land provide the land. Is there a license required to operate in that environment, to build in that environment? Will governments get it? Will we get it from government? We confirm from government that we'll get it. Now, remember I said that in project finance, risk is allocated to the partner best suited to bear the risk. So one risk is the land. We've secured the land, right, that is available so we can build on it. We secure whatever licenses and taxes that we can build on it. Then you guarantee the cash flows from what you have described, that there are ongoing businesses there that will generate the cash flows. The expertise to run such a facility, if we build it, do we have the expertise? If we don't have the expertise, can we get it? Do we have somebody who has a proven track record of running such a place for a given period of time, and we get the person? In all these things I'm describing, I'm allocating risk to the party best suited to bear the risk. Now, that is not the role of a commercial bank, not project finance. So that is the role of an investment boutique, like the one you were directed to when you went to the commercial bank and they said, go and make this. We have quite a number of them, right? However, because remember there was something I said earlier, that there is always this assumption in Nigeria that the private sector can come in and solve a problem that is the responsibility of government to do. We see that a lot in the tech space. The tech guys feel they can code in Nigeria, they can code their way out of every problem every risk that we face in Nigeria. And most times they often get bonds, right? Because without physical policy, every other thing is a waste.
Policy.
Without policy, every other thing you are doing is a waste. Policy is that foundation that every other thing comes up. You can imagine, I'll give you an example. So let me explain to you something you understand when I say risk is allocated to party best suited to bear the risk. So there was a time in my life, in my career, that I was a housing finance specialist. I was doing housing across the globe. I'd won awards for developing housing models, not in Nigeria, international awards. And I came back to Nigeria and I decided to deploy some of those models. Based on that, I was appointed a member of the Presidential Committee on Housing, on Affordable Housing. Now, on one of my trips to raise capital, I was making a presentation and we were talking about, and now I'm raising capital for housing for my then employer, who was Access Bank. I was making a presentation about the deficit, the housing deficit in Nigeria, and how much money we need, and the fact that you put in the money, you know how we make this as entrepreneurs. And then there's somebody now says, what about your Land Use Act, right? And I was like, well, I mean, the Land Use Act is there, the issues are there. And so the person enumerated the problems of the Land Use Act. And this is not in Nigeria, this is Oyibo now, enumerating the problems, because you can see that they have thought about them, they mentioned the risk. And I said, no, not a problem, we can handle it. And he said, so unfortunately, at that point in time, then President Yar'Adua had, when he was governor of Katsina, I think it was Katsina State, he had acquired a property in Abuja, and I think was within the environment of the Aso Rock Villa. And then when he became president, when Malam El-Rufai was Minister of FCT, Malam El-Rufai revoked all the COOs around the villa, including that of the sitting president, right? So in the course of this, my speaking plenty English to these potential fund providers that they should bring this money, millions and millions of dollars into Nigeria to invest in real estate. Remember that if your certificate of occupancy is revoked, right, you lose everything on that property. So the man says, gentlemen, but if the certificate of occupancy of your president, a sitting president, can be revoked, what happens to the certificate of occupancy of an investor who is not even a local? And that was where this case I built collapsed immediately. I mean, I was still talking, but I knew that that there was no money going to come out, because even me, I could not provide an answer to that question. So no matter what we do, right? And don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound defeatist. I'm just trying to show you the nature of the challenges we face in that space. No matter what you do, if the fiscal policy is not right to support it, then you are literally putting people's money at risk.
And so policy is everything.
Yeah, policy.
Keep that thought, Dr. Jenku. Professor Larinde, how can the experiences, knowledge, skill, and resilience of subsistence farming be harnessed for addressing current food insecurity in Nigeria? And how can our youth be empowered to address unemployment of youth? How can that subsistence farming address unemployment? We are inching to when our audience will contribute, and I recognize you, Pastor Mecca. Please stand by. My brother Richie George. Stand by, Dr. Atai, if you are here. But I want to quickly ask you this, Professor Gbenga. How can we harness these skills for youth empowerment and to destroy unemployment, at least reduce youth unemployment in Nigeria, thereby indirectly addressing the insecurity situation? Because most of the youth that participate in this insecurity thing on the both sides is because of unemployment. So please give us how we can do this.
So, but before he answers that questions, I just want to talk to Dr. Ozemene. What is everything you've explained here is what they are responsible for, which is corporate social responsibility. In harnessing all of this that we've been talking about here, what is it that you think those commercial banks are doing for the communities
to give back
to the community? It can't just be that they are in business following all the policies. I know policy, I'm also a very big time policy person. Every policy can only be a law if it's been adopted. Like the people I'm telling you about in Lokoja, that's a sustainable business. Those businesses have been ages. So there should be a guiding policy regarding those lands.
So the reason why our focus is more on the youth, we have to now speak out to elect people who we adopt those policies and put it into law so that there will be investors that will be allowed to build those places, borrowing from the banks. Because I am not okay for banks to be in those places.
Dr. Nana, let me help you. I've served on 3 presidential committees, right? And each time, after the third one, 2 presidential committees and I advised government on one space. After the last time, I told myself I wasn't going to do that kind of work again. Now, let me tell you what always happens each time I'm brought in. And I come in and I feel, oh, I have these answers, I have all these things, by bright. And I come and I'll say, oh, but when I look at the records, I'll realize that there have been committees before mine. And I'll say, okay, can I see the reports of these committees? I can tell you that if you come in with your ideas and call for those reports, unless there are things that technology has introduced recently, there is no idea that has not been proposed to government before. There is none. You don't have a monopoly of knowledge. We have brilliant people who have sat down, put these things together. But see, because of the nature of democracy we run, right? If you don't have somebody who understands the import of those things and who can own that vision, it's a waste of time. So when we did the Presidential Committee on Housing in 2007, right? And I called for all the reports, the previous reports. We had some unique models, but if they had implemented just 50% of the things that had been advised to implement in the previous reports or commissions, we won't have the shortfall we have. And it cuts across everywhere. So leadership is key, but hold on a second, hold that thought. Leadership is key. As to the private sector, let's note something, and I'm not speaking on their behalf, but note something. The private sector pays taxes. They are involved in humongous corporate social responsibilities. The success we recorded in the fight against COVID in Nigeria was because of the private sector. And the CEO of HIV Trust Fund of Nigeria is funded by the private sector. There's a 150 billion naira defense fund that's been set up post-EndSARS to provide the law enforcement with the right gadgets, because part of what the law enforcement said that led to the fiasco was that they didn't have the right gadgets, the right hot water, APC, whatever. It's the private sector that's providing it. We have roads now being built by the private sector. So can they do more? Possibly they can do more. But my point is that we cannot in Nigeria, our responsibility, we have neglected our responsibility and are turning around to hold other people responsible for something. It's actually the role of government to do all these things, but they are not doing it. So we're now turning around to say the private sector should do it. If they do it, all fair and good. But remember, the private sector is paying taxes, and they are doing corporate social responsibility, and they're now doing all these things that we want them to do. So it's important we have to put that in perspective. So when I talk about private sector, I'm not talking about just the banks, but the banks are taking a chunk of it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jenku. That was insightful. Professor Larinde, please help us out. How can these young people harness this skills of subsistence agriculture to reduce unemployment and also be empowered? Please go ahead. Dr. Atai, please stand by. You will speak next if you are already here, okay? Otherwise,
Dr. Chris.
Thank you.
Dr. Chris.
Yes, Prof.
I'm on with you. Farming can be divided into so many levels. We talk of subsistence farming, commercial farming, and even plantation agriculture. Subsistence farming, we have said, this with raising what you can consume. That to start farming business, you don't need much capital. There are a lot of aspects of farming you can go to, get into as a youth, that you don't even need so much land. Once you have a home where you stay, you can do snail farming in your backyard. You just need to get used tires, basket, and all the rest. You put the snail there and get waste from even eateries and all the rest to feed them. You can do fish farming inside a water tank in your house or even tarpaulins. You understand? But the real issue is government policy. Is it encouraging to the youth to get involved in all these things? Let's take, for example, in the university, we churn out a lot of agricultural graduates every year. Average of 50,000 in a year from all Nigerian universities that are offering agriculture as a course. When they go to their youth service, what do? They post them to go and teach in secondary school. They don't post them to farms or even government having farms where they can work. We will not see them posting medical doctors to go and teach. Agriculture is a profession. So they should be posted to where they will practice what they have learned in the school. But we find out some of them, through influence, some of them go as even PA, even to politicians and local government, not going out to practice what they have learned in school. So the government, there should be, let's even take it up from there. Those that have learned the skill to change the setting and bring out of food, take us out of food insecurity. Let them be rightly posted to where they will be useful. You won't see them posting civil engineer or petroleum engineer to go and teach in secondary schools. Are you getting it? There are a lot of farms all over there. They can be posted even to industries that do value addition to agricultural products. They learn one or two things there. From that, they can come in the value, the supply chain, even in the market.
And so there's a bit technological failure from Prof.
Those who do the farm work. Are you getting it?
Yes.
Go and check when you raise those that have fish farm. How much do those that sell in the market buy from you? Let them pick from you. Go to market the next day and go and price the same. You see the price. Well, those that even smoke and all the rest. Even if they are not ready to go to the farm, they can key in into all these areas. Are you getting it?
Okay,
yes. So thank you. Okay.
The government should provide the enabling environment, even to encourage the youth.
So they should post them to the right locations.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Professor Larinde. Thank you for that information. Dr. Atai, are you here? Richard.
Dr. Tai is not around. I don't think he's come out of his meeting yet, but.
All right, Richard.
Yes.
I know you have a word or two to add. Any
Can
question?
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Go
thank
ahead.
You. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Nana, and thank you, Dr. Chris Akeze, for putting together such a fantastic program of education, interaction, and engagement. It's been fascinating listening to your keynote speakers. And if there is anything that resonated with me the most, it was to do with policy. I think, if I am being totally honest, I think it's Professor Jeku, if that makes me right, or Dr. Jeku.
Still an aspiring professor, sir, but I claim that.
Is that right? Did I get that right?
Okay. Yes, he is a professor at business school in Lagos. Yes. Professor in America is a teacher, so he is a teacher.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yes. So for me, I think he was initially being economical with the truth, in the sense that policy is a key factor, which he came back to, and I'm really pleased that he came back to policy issue. And I think he was also being economical with the truth in terms of the position of the commercial banks being just pure lending houses. What we are dealing with here is beyond policy and lending or equity vice risk, and appropriateness of institutions set up to perform some regulatory functions because the regulatory authorities have oversight. I think we are dealing with something quite fundamental in terms of cost, culture and practices in the financial sector in Nigeria. I don't know if you can still hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my apologies. I thought I had lost everyone there. But I think the crux of the matter Doctor, is there is, in my opinion, and based on research, empirical evidence, there is a lot of discrimination against the youth of Nigeria across board. There is a lot of discrimination, and therefore that has created what Professor Larinde touched on. It is a gap analysis. A gap analysis that we have not been, in my opinion, been honest enough to want to address on a collaborative framework or as a collaborative exercise of truth in order to provide solutions or solvable answers to government that will drive policies. So my question, rhetorical as it may sound, is we are advocating for youth empowerment and youth employment and youth engagement and youth having access to financial products in order for them to improve their investment capability, be entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial, because they form the 70% of the bulk of our population. And yet when it comes to decision making or deliberations, you will find that often the youth are not part of that discussion. So who is actually thinking for the youth? Because if you have the youth as part of these discussions, you develop a framework that allows for us to move in the direction of what Dr. or Professor Ozoemena has suggested, to also move in the direction of what Professor Larinde has suggested in terms of people or graduates of agric coming out of school, being churned out and going teaching, but there is no loop, there's no double loop cycle of feedback back to home institutions so that they know what value they are actually adding to the economy or the society following their education. We all here, I think majority of us here are educated, and this is where the West is different to Africa or Nigeria. When you are educated here, your education is as good as making an impact in society. And I think one of the profs said it earlier on. However, in Nigeria, a lot of us are educated to the extent whereby it is mere a paper exercise. So therefore it exists in the head. I think someone made a very good quote earlier on. So, but I don't want to go down the road of politics and whatever. Let us focus on some hard truth. And that is where I'm to leave some hard truth that I'd like to just focus on. And I think Professor Larinde, in terms of agriculture, food security, and reducing the price of food and ensuring greater competitiveness within the agriculture sector, Professor Larinde made a very poignant point. There is no continuity in government policies in Nigeria, and that is one of our biggest problems. Our man today, Dr. Adeshi, I think is Dr. Adeshina, who is the head of the African Development Bank. During his tenure as the Minister of Agriculture, if my memory serves me right, this gentleman, and I think that was the reason why he was handpicked to go to the AFDB, introduced or disrupted the agricultural system in Nigeria by introducing a highly innovative mobile phone system to reach farmers with subsidized farm inputs. And I think out of memory, the program was called Growth Enhancement Scheme and the e-wallet scheme. In the age of technology, from what Professor Larinde was saying earlier on, these are the kind of tools, these are the kind of platforms that our young men and women will embrace, because it helps them deliver their agricultural nuances or skills and competencies in a slicker way. We need to go back to that in terms of going back to basics. Because where there is security, there is investment. Where there is investment, there is growth. And where there is growth, there is development. And I don't feel we have done that or cracked that as well as we should. My last point will be on the issue of finance. We need, or government needs to look to setting up entrepreneurship investment banks that focuses more on the youth as a demographics in Nigeria. Because Google thinks it fit to come and invest 1 billion to create 1 billion jobs in Africa in the fintech industry, which is growing. Why are we not having a systemic design thinking to tap into that kind of funding that Google is thinking. So someone else is actually thinking for us, and we are not thinking for ourselves. So I'll leave that for now. If I have opportunity to say anything later on, I will contribute. But again, I'd like to thank you for the invite. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Richie. You will have the opportunity to say the final word again. I have Pastor Emeka, Mr. A mentor, and a public advocate. He will speak, and so after him will be my friend Jonathan from Houston, Texas. Pastor Emeka, over to you.
First and foremost, I want to thank all the panelists tonight. It's been quite stimulating. This is way out of my league, but somehow I have been able to just follow through by virtue of my little native intelligence and the things that I've read about subsistence farming and the issue of youth empowerment. I believe strongly that youth empowerment should start in the home. That's where it all must begin. Giving them qualitative education, teaching them about the norms, about the culture of the people. For example, I live in the first world. Every kid knows what is right, what they should do. It's not a perfect system, but in the back of their mind, they have understanding of how a good society should run. So we need to begin to inculcate this into our youth. For example, I have my second son who is currently studying an engineering course in one of the universities, and he is already a businessman. He has already empowered himself. He has 2 or 3 businesses he's running, yet he's an undergraduate. In the next 1 year or thereabout, he'll finish. And then by that time, he's not going to start empty. He's going to start with certain things he's already saved up over the years. So he starts with the family. And if you take it a little further, if you look at it from the biblical point of view, because I'm a pastor, so let me speak from that point of view. If you look at Lot and Abraham, Abraham took Lot along. But a few years down the line, Lot became very, very successful also, to the point that they had to separate ways because the land was not strong enough, was not large enough to sustain the 2 of them. So who are we taking on in our wings, under our wings to train? If you look at Jacob too, Laban had to also bring him in. He served Laban for a couple of years, and then he was empowered. By the time he was leaving, Laban had to, let him go with whatever it is that was able to literally save up over the years. And if you look at the Igbo culture, the Yoruba culture, where a man will serve a master, and in the process, he's empowered with a kind of skill, and then he goes out there at the end of the day, to start his own things. He's already empowered. So if you can build more on this, and that's how our society thrives. I remember back in those days when I was going to one of the higher institutions in Nigeria, the people in my clan gathered together and put money together and said, Emeka, go for your school fees. So it was like a communal kind of thing, even though my dad was one who took a major chunk of my sponsorship. So we need to go back to what makes us Nigerians, Africans, where we take care of each other, where we're able to support each other. We don't have to leave it to the society. And then coming back to the church, I just want to read something very quickly to us. In the book of Acts chapter 4, all the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was powerfully at them. And let me go down to the next verse. For them, from time to time, those who own land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put them at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to everyone who had need. So the church also should play this role of meeting the needs of the people, empowering the people, paying for their education, sending them to go and learn one trade or the other. In the process, the family is contributing, the society is contributing, the church is contributing, and at the end of the day, we have an egalitarian society where everybody's empowered, the youth is empowered, and everybody can stay with their 2 eyes closed. So I think we need to go back to this family issue of parents inculcating these virtues into their children, not leave it to society. And then, of course, the church also playing a role. And then, of course, the banking sector, and by the time everybody is on board doing their own stuff, because the youth, the youth is like the most powerful concentration of untapped resources that we have in Nigeria. And we need to invest in them. We need to create room and opportunity for them to be able to excel. And if you don't do it, at the end of the day, we're going to have more people going to join Boko Haram, going to join all these vices, that all these people, that eventually will, create problem for us in society. So that's my own little contribution. Let it start from home. Let it start from the church, from the society. Like at the end of the day, then the bank can come to play their roles, and the agriculturists can go ahead, and then we have a better Nigeria for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Emeka Osigwe. Jonathan Kadiri, another childhood friend of mine from Ibadan. What say you?
Unmute.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute. Unmute. Okay. Unmute.
Unmute yourself. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, this is very good. I want to thank the NMTV, the host, Dr. Nana, and the co-host, Dr. Chris Kaiser. We've been friends right from Ibadan and stuff like that. Professor Larinde, Chris, I really don't know who he is. Were we friends then in Ibadan, Dr. Larinde? Were we friends those days? Because I really couldn't recognize his face.
No, I don't think you know him.
Okay, I don't know him. Okay.
You were Abadina, all these Abadina children.
Connection.
We're Montolivet.
Okay, you are my fellow Abadina Montolivet.
So basically, my name is Jonathan Kadiri. I've been in the US for like 17 years. I have a master's degree in biochemistry. I've been a scientist all my life. When I was in Nigeria, I taught in the University of Ibadan, though I didn't have a PhD. Then I came to the United States. I'm a nursing practitioner here in the United States. So I'm going to base my own argument on empowerment of the youth and food security based on from the medical perspective. One of the presenters talked about church, and one of the presenters talked about native intelligence. That's very important. You see, the thing is, knowledge brings power, and power brings wealth. You understand? Then they talk about the home, the church, and the society, how we can develop from the home to the church and to the society. One of the pastors said recently that Redeem and Winners had one of the highest population of members all over the world. They have over 10,000 churches all over the world. What is happening in Nigeria? Nigeria is over 200 million in terms of populations and stuff like that. Since 1960 to this present age, Nigeria is 61 years old. What has happened? Listen to this. This is what I wrote. The economy showed a downward trend in 6 years' rule of current leadership. A debt of 3.1 is currently incurred, which amount to economic slavery. A 33% downturn in unemployment rate. 82.9 million Nigerians cannot even afford daily meal. 82.9%. You understand? Nigerian cannot afford daily meal. The 6 years rule of this current government showed a fall in Naira from 167 to 576 Naira. For God's sake, we're talking about banking, we're talking about commercials and stuff. The reality is, is Nigeria walkable? Can Nigeria be reformed? Yes. But how are we going to go about it? The commercial banks are trying everything they can. We talk about policy and procedure in the medical field in the United States of America. Policy and procedure is very common. It's very important. But how can you implement it? How can you regulate it? But in the Nigerian factor, the biggest problem we have is constitutional review. If the constitution is not reviewed, talking about commercial bank, SME, empowering staff, empowering people, no, they don't. All they give money to is Dangote and the rest so that they can quickly get their money. The youths have been taken off the equation. That's the reason why you see the high level of poverty. Food security. How many people can even afford a home? Not to talk about stay in a house where you can have a little backyard where you can plant this and that. That is not real. The reality is zero. So what can we do? What can we do? The first thing is constitutional review, good leadership that really have the good intention. But the thing is, Anybody that has the good intention will be erased. Nigeria is a capitalist system of government. Nobody cares about us, Michael Jackson said. You know, so there must be a rapid stand by our leadership that, okay, we want to do this. If not, I'm sorry, no matter what commercial banks, whatever banks does, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. You give the people money, they take the money, they run. When they run, they come back, they ain't got nothing left. So Nigeria is so complicated. The way forward, I don't know. The only way forward is good leadership. I'll make it.
And so the argument about leadership and followership continues. Thank you, Mr. Kadiri. Very insightful statement by you. But again, we're inching to the end of the program. I really don't like to keep people, but the discussion will continue. Let's now go around. Mr. Richard, I see you, Babatunde.
Yes, thank you.
How are you doing today, Babatunde?
Okay, sorry.
The barrister. Richard, please hold on.
I'm fine, thank you. Unfortunately, I don't know. I had the thought that this program will be 3 p.m. So that's why I joined like 2 minutes to 3, and I'm listening, and I discovered that it seems like you've started a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So what's the regular time? Is there a regular time or just...
Yes,
2 p.m.
It's 2 p.m. to accommodate people from other locations in the world.
Okay, we note that. If there's time for me, then I would like to say something maybe for 1
Absolutely, you have the floor. I want to go for the final statement from our guests and our panelists. But if you have anything, you can say it now.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Please don't mind my background. I'm working in my home office, and I just remember that it's almost 3. Then I quickly joined. I'm sorry that I came late. What I would like to add is because this is an area of personal interest to me. In my own little effort, I have invested at least somewhat more than $50,000-$60,000 into agriculture in Nigeria, and I can tell you that I'm so happy to tell you of the reward, which is zero. Which is zero after about $60,000 wasted. My experience will help me to give my own brief comments. I think beyond the government, we have to look at this from 3 trunks: the government, the individuals, that is us, and the institutions. I'm happy that we've been hearing about professor, doctor on this platform today. Our professors in the universities. I heard someone saying that when the youth or the students went for youth service, they were sent to banks or to teach or to do something else. Yes, they did. Before that time, what did you do for them in the university? In the Department of Agriculture, how many Department of Agriculture in Nigeria have products that they sell to the market, or that they even sell within the community, within the university community? They can have a farmer's market. So when your students are not productive in the school after 4 years or 5, now you want them to go for youth service of 12 months and you want them to learn the practical there. No, you start from the school. Let each agriculture department in all universities, let them have the practical products. Maybe they can request for thousands of acres from government and say, okay, each school, Department of Agriculture, you have 200 hectares of land. You have 1,000 hectares of land. You must have your product every year, and the resource from that product should be reinvested in the university. So you can't have students spending 4 years in the university, and you now want them to do practical at the youth service. So that's one for the universities. Let's do practical agriculture practice in the university. Now, for us, before I go to the government, as individuals, we have to keep making the effort. It's tough, it's tedious. When I was going to start my farming in Nigeria, first of all, I approached the Ministry of Agriculture in my state. Yes, I knew the Commissioner of Lands. I was able to get about 22 acres, but unfortunately, where the government's agricultural reserve is, you drive, when you get to the last place that you could drive, you join a bike. On the bike, you can't sit your legs on the regular thing because it will pass through river, you pass through all kinds of things, dangerous place before you can get to the farm. I farmed on 22 acres of land for a whole year. When the products were ready, we couldn't take them to the farm. There was no road. The farm is in Ibadan, but you have to first of all go to like Oyo Town and pass through Oyo Town to come back to Ibadan through a bush, the forest, before you can get your harvest back into the city. It was not worth it. We just left the farm and we left all the products on the farm. So the government has to do their own part. Let the infrastructures that would take farmers to the farm and bring their produce back to the city. Let those infrastructures be done properly and let there be fund for the farmers. Now, on the issue of the fund, at least most of us did agriculture up to the secondary school level. We know another problem with funding is you give some people the money to do farming, they marry 2-3 more wives. The money is not spent on agriculture that they were given the money for. So the government has to know a way to monitor, maybe the agriculture farm extension. They have people that they will train. Those people will help the farmer to advise them properly on how to spend that money. So the money is not given out. You need 50,000, 5 million naira for farming. We give you, no. You need to buy land. How much? 100,000 money for land. You need to plant 200,000. They see that planting. You need to harvest. You need to buy machinery, X amount of money. Then they monitor that. The money is not disbursed once. The money is disbursed instrumentally so that the advisor, the agricultural advisor, the extension officers, they monitor these farmers and they make sure that the money given by the government is used properly. But of course, we know corruption will come in, and that is where the government has to do the proper thing. So these are the areas that I think, I really have things to say, but I know we are running against the timing. So, but for the three trunks, the university, the individual, and the government, we have a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, like one of the panelists mentioned, we don't have youth being represented when these policies were being formed. And when we are talking about youth, we need to define also who are these youths that we are talking about. Are we talking about students in the Department of Agriculture that really have the knowledge that can share? Or are we talking about the sons and daughters of a senator or the politicians? They will just bring their children to come and represent the youth. And these children, they were born with silver spoons in their mouth. They do not have the proper background in what happens on the street. The last example I'd like to give is that I read the story of this guy. I think he will be around 39 or 40 now. He's in Nasarawa State, but he's a Yoruba guy. He studied agriculture, I believe, but he was working as a journalist in London. And after some years, he was working as a journalist in London for some West African countries. He was reporting on agriculture for the First Bank again. He left the journalism, went to First Bank, Department of Agriculture, but he noticed that the money set aside for agriculture sponsorship for farmers was actually going to politicians. They were collecting the money, they say they have a farm, and they will collect the money, and the money was not going to the real farmers. So he felt he wasn't making real changes. So he himself resigned and he went into farming, went to Nasarawa State, could work together with some local people, and they had farmland about maybe 3,000 hectares or something like that. And he partnered with them 50-50. I bring the money, you bring the land. And that's how they started the rice farm. Right now, the guy is about, I think, number 2 or number 3 rice producing guy in Nigeria after Dangote and one other guy. It was that youth. he was able to go into it. But I'm not going to use him as an example for the other general youth. These guys had exposure. He has worked in UK for some time. He had the pounds behind him, and his family were able to help him. But as individuals too, we can still do our own thing, but we need the government to do the most part of it. I cannot spend money to start a farm and some cow will enter my farm and eat my produce and I can't do nothing about it. So the government has, the security will still have to be there. The security is so important. So many farmers have been killed on their farms. So I'm surprised that even we are not having more expensive food in Nigeria right now. The food is expensive, not just because people are not farming, but in the last 1 or 2 years, so many farmers have died. So many farmers have been killed on their farms. So many farmers have run away from the farm. So we are going to suffer this for the next 2-3 years, even if we start to produce more now. It's still going to take some years to catch up. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister Babatunde. I see you, Mr. Ajibola, but let me go to Richie now. Richie.
Yes. These are complex topics. These are complex issues, and there is no silver bullet. We have to be realistic. There is no silver bullet anywhere to fix these problems overnight. But what I think we should be agreed upon as we leave tonight is the fact that change comes through conversations. And we're having quality conversations, and some of these conversations have solutions and carry a lot of weight. To quote you, Dr. Chris, let's keep these conversations going. To quote Dr. or Professor Jeku Ozoemena earlier on, he said he's attended and he's been a part of so many presidential panels or advisory boards, and the repository of knowledge that manages a lot of thoughts are unquantifiable. At the end of the day, it comes to implementation and execution, and therefore good leadership becomes the anchor for moving the needle or the trajectory in a positive realm. And I think that is exactly what Professor Gbenga Larinde was saying as well, that decision makers or policy makers of education and whatever have not gone back to the drawing board to look at our educational system by way of taking some kind of surgical approach to determine what is fit for purpose in our current world. So I'd like to thank you. The start of these conversations has begun, and hopefully our voices will be packaged and it will become part of the knowledge that we need to deliver the change we want for our dear fatherland or motherland, as the case may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Richie. Thank you so much. Over to you, Aji. Let me hear from you. Ajibola.
Good afternoon, members of the panel. Yeah, I was just going to say that, agriculture as other aspects of the Nigerian economy is inhibited by the lack of proper policies. In recent times, we would have noticed that the various policies that are aimed at improving agriculture in Nigeria has become a grant for compensation for party loyalists. The beneficiaries of these programs are usually party loyalists, and it is usually meant to, grease their pants in order to, ensure that they remain loyal to the ruling party. Our educational institutions have also failed us with regards to the quality of graduates that we churn out every year. I remember one of the speakers mentioned that the various departments of agriculture in different institutions do not have programs, to really empower their graduates to do well, after they graduate in school. I attended the University of Ibadan, and I can, say that there is a program called Practical Year Training Program. It's a 1-year program that all agricultural students at the University of Ibadan had to go through, whereby we had hectares of land in a town called Ile-Ogbo in present-day Osun State. But the problem is when these students, during the 1 year of their practical year experience, they plant different, there's animal husbandry, regular agriculture and everything, is a multi-million naira project. But at the end of this 1 year program, the management of the department, the departmental heads and the faculty heads, the dean of faculties, when they sell this product, they pocket the money. So the academia has failed in this regard. We have had ministers who are trained professionals in their various fields. I'd also like to use the University of Ibadan as an example again. We're fortunate to have an health minister that was a professor of medicine, Professor Adewale, who was a former VC. And permit me to digress. During his tenure as a minister of health, I'm telling you that it's a shameful period in our healthcare system. That was the time we realized that the various health insurance monies were being shared by these politicians. The healthcare system was as bad as it could ever be. And you would imagine that if you have a professor of medicine as a minister of health, he was supposed to rub up positively, in the health system. So who then do we blame for these various failures in every aspect of society? I don't think that there's a way that Nigeria can empower its youth, because the generation before us are the likes of the General Obasanjo and their cronies. They have mortgaged our future. The Obasanjo funds as we have it today is a product of Operation Feed the Nation. But now, years down the line, Operation Feed the Nation has become a property of one man who ruled Nigeria for many years. Until we are able to hold these men accountable for their various failed policies, like they do in China, we are not going to grow as a nation. The various policies, they inhibit the growth of the country as a whole. So where then did we start? We might want to say that the family is the bedrock of the society. It might be true, but the demands of the economy, the deteriorating nature of the economy has forced parents, to scramble for survival. So now the family institution is lacking. Kids are lacking the basic training they need to be productive members of the society. So, and I do not think that, as professionals, we always want to argue that we need the right framework to implement these policies. But I always want to say that until we as Africans understand that we are different and that the European model will not serve us in any way because it is alien to Africa, only then we'll be able to make giant strides in the areas of agriculture and as a people as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ajibola. Thank you so much. You called in from Indianapolis, America. So I will give the final words to my guests. I don't know, David, you have anything to say before I give to Professor Larinde to give us his final word? David?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
And I just got reminded of the very first discussion I met here about policy dialogue. And it's really amazing to see that that aspect of conversation was brought to bear. Thank goodness that we were able to get a funding worth from thousands of dollars in my organization to work on the school farm for school meals project, because the federal government of Nigeria has actually worked on a homegrown school feeding program, and each and every one of us here must have heard one way or the other of the school feeding program in Nigeria. And if we can link that up to the nutritional benefits or the dietary diversity that has been called for, by all parameters, especially in most state universal basic education boards, you'd see that the underlying problem is the fact that not that many teachers or professors, like one of the speakers say, not that they do not have the resources or the knowledge or the agricultural knowledge, but it's just that sometimes there is little or really poor monitoring and evaluation network that is being placed really on implementing some of these things. So if we begin to hold the government accountable, not really for the knowledge that it has failed to give out, but for failing to implement and to monitor how that knowledge is being used. If you have a child or a niece or a nephew or just some person who is in Nigeria in primary school, for instance, you discover that the teachers actually have in their curriculum what is called practical agriculture. So they take the students or the pupils to their own farm and not the school farm. They record these things. So the consciousness of the typical African child or Nigerian child in the rural settlement is that this teacher is taking me to his or her farm to give him food or to produce for him. So there is need for that rebranding. So that's why I'm really enthusiastic and happy about. We got funding for the project from the Danish embassy, and we're looking at beginning from four schools or so. It's a massive project, and we want to really tell the government using this pilot project that look, you can do well to rebrand how agriculture is being perceived by pupils in primary school, in secondary schools, so that pupils go to school to learn the theoretical parts of agriculture as well as the practical aspects of it. We have very big arable land in the country. We have schools in the north of Nigeria, where I schooled. We have schools in the west. I also schooled in Abeokuta. We had schools in the south, and you see most of these schools have massive landscape. What is stopping the schools from really tapping into the wealth of the agricultural environment? You see, so I am looking at beyond the policy talks, the access to land and access to financial services I was able to listen to, and access to green jobs, as one of the professors rightly said. We need to look at access to knowledge, to information, and to education, even to the primary school level. And I feel if I see any primary school student or pupil or student or a secondary school student, the first thing I would love to ask the person is to find out what is their understanding of agriculture. Are we building young people who are afraid to go to the farm? Do they have the consciousness, that knowledge of, look, I love going to the farm, understanding the farming processes of different crops, the nutritional elements of these crops, and how best they could monetize themselves. And this is a really rare stuff. While I was in the north, I I self-funded my education. I didn't put on any tie or fancy shoes. I was in a ginger farm. I had a ginger farm that you go to farm on weekends, and on weekdays we are back in a class. I always wanted to go back to the farm because I was making a whole lot of money. I would store, and sell, get to dry in Kagoma, in Kafanchang, and then we'll get to sell these things. While the majority, some of my classmates were wondering where, especially those who were self-funded like me, wondering what to eat and so on. I was bawling, and they were all afraid. Some of them were afraid to join me in the farm. They felt this is something that fine boys know they go farm, that kind of thing. But the farming was helping me to push my education to the next level. And I didn't go stealing. So it's high time people begin, especially young people in the country, we begin to tell them, look, this thing, it's not evil. this thing, it's something you should be proud of. So that's just the angle I want to look at, a rebranding of agricultural education right to the roots. So young people come up with the innovative ideas and help their, let's check China, come on, this is how that country left where it was then, and now they are doing a whole lot in terms of artificial intelligence and agriculture, and they love that stuff. So we need to build this into our young people, and we shouldn't be shy of such conversation. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much, Professor Larinde. I heard rebranding. So in your closing thoughts, how, I mean, figure this into your closing thought as you give us your final words for this edition. How can you rebrand? He made the case that most, in my mind, when you say farmer in Nigeria, even I, at my level, I imagine a man in tattered clothes with some hoe, hanging that cap, going to farm. So rebranding, Professor Larinde, in your closing thoughts, put that, give us your final word. Please unmute. Professor Larinde, are you there? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, Dr. Chris, thank you for having me again. Like we say in the university now, that's what we call, under our entrepreneurial studies in agriculture, we talk of agribusiness, that agri people should take it as a business venture. When you take it as a business venture, you know, when you have an input, definitely you have an output and you're looking for profit. Because now there's a way people can key in, there's ban of importation of some agricultural products in the country now. That means there's available market. Are you getting it? There are things that are done in the past when we are organized, when we are running a regional government. In the days of Awolowo and others, we have what we call farm settlement. Government can go back to this. They activate the farm settlement. Some of the lands are wasting. They are turning them even to housing estates all over. You see, the present-day governors selling the land and allocating it to build houses and estates. We can go back to the farm, and government should have an input into this. Then people will be encouraged. Like David was also saying, when we were growing up in the primary school, we are taught how to plant maize. They tell you bring it, put it in can of make and all the rest. You see, watch it grow, and you're happy that I'm the one that put this in the soil and it's growing. So the culture, we have to cultivate that habit back. The orientation has to start even from the primary school. We were doing it in the city, we are not in the rural area. And that is what prompts some of our own interest today. That people like me ended up studying agriculture in the university. I watch what I planted growing and waiting for the, Chris, you remember when we were in secondary school? Now, we have school farm in the school where we planted maize, granite and others, and we were harvesting, and we were happy that, I mean, this is our handiwork.
I remember that's where we actually went to when we were on punishment, to go and cut and grow crops. You remember?
Yeah, you go there, you go and weed. You understand? And this can go a long way to change the value system, the orientation of people. Now, what we even find out is that most people that are into the farming now are not even the trained hands. Those that have money that are going to the farming. Like he said about the school program, you are doing the school feeding programs. No people you are located to contractors, to politicians who supply this food into the school. Why can't we develop a system where we grow this farm, products, and we now put it in school? It will reduce costs for government, and they'll make it available. Even the students can be made to grow them. You don't necessarily have to be rice and beans and all the rest. When they have maize farm, you can use maize as lunch. They watch it grow in their compound, they harvest it and they process it. Can cost nowadays we don't have boarding system again where they cook in the school. But those things can come from that. I can employ people to cook it and it will go around. With this, if we go back to the farm settlement, in those days they have dairy farm, we have so many kind of farm that was enough to go around everybody, even at a very cheap cost. Nigeria has over 70 million hectares of arable lands that we can use for agriculture. And you find out that very few number are the ones that are even feeding the population, those in the rural area. Feeding almost, everybody in the city and even beyond. And like I said, we need to provide infrastructures that will link the rural area to the city, other than making super highways where you have 4 lanes, 10 lanes, and all the rest. Go internal and do these rural areas. Look at the experience of, forgetting his name again, that said he invested in over $60,000 in agriculture in Nigeria. And the products were there and they couldn't get it to town. They couldn't get it to town. You understand? So they can as well provide roads into the rural areas where these products can easily come and they come at a cheaper landing cost. When you look at cost of transportation from all these bad roads that link the city with the rural area, they account for a lot of costs and makes the food more expensive by the time they get to the town. And when you talk of food security, it's only just not having access to food, but it must be affordable. Are you getting it?
Yes.
So when you have, that's when you study food secured. You must have access and it must be affordable, and even the nutritional requirement must be met. When, just for example, tomato is harvested, there's no transport to bring it to town, it will deteriorate. You understand? It's a perishable item. Before I get to the city, even the nutritional content of it will have reduced over time.
All right, Professor. Yes. Thank you, Professor Larinde. I guess I'll bring you back again. It's a continuous discussion. Let me go to Dr. Jenku as we close this program for now. Dr. Jenku, lead us out of this. I know you will come back. I know, because I have a lot to discuss with you. Dr. Jenku, give us your final thought for this edition.
Thank you, Docs, and thanks to my fellow panelists and everybody who called in. I don't want us to leave here today feeling as if all hope is lost and nothing is taking place. I don't want us to feel that people are not out there right now in the trenches, whether it's be it agriculture. I know the focus is agriculture and finance, but be it agriculture, be it finance, be it education. One of the speakers earlier talked about our adopting of foreign models. I don't want us to go away from here thinking that we don't have people in Nigeria right now who are thinking with the most appropriate models that fit our environment and our narrative to drive this change. But what I felt, and I think we dealt on that extensively, is the fact that without the right policy overlay, a lot of this energy will be dissipated. Things will get done, but they can be done much faster and much better if there's an overarching vision and if there is a right leadership. So as we are doing all these things, whether it's in the space of agriculture, in the space of finance, in the space of education, wherever we are on the globe or in the globe, let's also begin to think of how we will join hands together to put the right people in charge, not just at the presidential level, because that's the mistake we keep making, not just the presidency, at the lowest, all tiers of government, whether it's our local government, even in our, I watched the earlier videos on decrepit school environment, even in our schools, in our alumni bodies. I go to schools, I go to the University of Miami, where my wife was a patient at some point, and I sit down on the park bench, and it has donated by XYZ. I've attended like 5 universities outside Nigeria, right? And I see how strong the alumni bodies and how strong the private sector, how strong the education trust funds that drive the systems are. I see how productive the education, the university systems there are. We ask ourselves today, we say we are professors and this and that. We ask ourselves, how many patents do we have out of University of Ibadan, for instance? How many professors or how many patents came out of University of Ibadan last year? How many came out of University of Lagos? How are they productive? I, for one, today I teach part-time in 2 business schools in Nigeria. And this is my own town meets gown private endeavor. I'm not paid for it, but I felt that because of all the experience I've garnered in everywhere I've worked and in the private sector, I felt it was important that the people that were producing from these business schools are not just learning the theory, but have people who are actually dealing with those challenges live and who can share, who can map the theory against the actual operation. So it's important that we know that, yes, things appear there, but we have people out there right now in the trenches trying to work out how best we can pull ourselves out of the doldrums. So thank you so much for having me. I think we largely overshot our time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much.
I know you are my brother. I know I will always get you back. Okay. So just stand by as we prepare for another edition sometime soon.
Thank you so much.
Do you have a closing remark?
I'm sorry, I was looking at the time and I thought there's no need that you won't call me, but thank you for calling me. I just wanted to round off and say, maybe we should have bullet points of the issues that we think will help us. We have listed the problems. We have listed numerous issues that we encounter in farming and in agriculture. But I like for us to address our minds beyond the subsistence farming behind your house, in the tire, to have fishing in the backyard and all that, because this will take us to no serious place. So I think, one, the government needs to create access to every farmland in the country. So access to the farmland. 2, storage. Those are the things that the government can help with. Storage for the farming, conducive storage. We talk about tomatoes. There are some years that tomatoes will be so plenty on the street, but they go rotting within a few weeks. So we need proper storage, maybe to turn them into paste so that, they can be kept for a longer period of time and for the period of time that there's no availability of such product. So 1, access to the farmland in terms of infrastructure rules and all that. 2, storage for the farm produce. Number 3, the government needs to work on the pricing. Youths are not going to go into a business, farming is a business, that is not financially that English, please. That is not financially sustainable for them, So the pricing of the product has to be something that is profitable for the youths when they go into the farming. Number 4, we have to, and that's what I said in my introduction, we have to go from this subsistence farming into industrial farming. We can train farm workers, not like low-income wages, real farm workers, graduates, that people that have money will have to employ them, and they work in those farms and they produce in the economic part of the farming, and actually the equipment, the farm equipment that will be used. Somebody needs to train them how to use this, how to repair them, how to produce them. And the last thing on that is security in the society. There is no need for someone to have 1,000 hectares of land to have as famine, but you can't get to there because you are afraid someone is going to kidnap you. So if government can work on those 5 things that I've just listed, I think we are going to be getting somewhere. And I'm pleading with our journalists, including Dr. Akazie Mrs. You are now a journalist on this. Please, let us always say the truth to the power. Our journalists in Nigeria, they have been failing the society in terms of they are not being investigative enough. When government says our policy is not really the problem in Nigeria, there are so many policies on the paper, but are they implementing them? So when government says year 2021, we are going to be giving 500 billion naira to the farmers, and at the end of December 2001, nobody can say this is the farmer they have given it to. What is our journalist? What are they doing? Let them investigate and say, okay, Ministry of Agriculture, at the beginning, you submitted a bill or a budget of 500 billion for the farmers. Can we have the list of those farmers that actually collected it? And go into those places and find out. Then people will know what we are going through and what is being done. And I'm sure positive result will be coming out of this. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Barrister Bolaji. We have always said on this program, every Nigerian language is welcomed. And also people have said it that we are just bringing in professors and doctors. Hang in there. We are bringing the street people too. We are bringing the Omonile and the Agberos who will speak to truth to power here. I thank Una, all of Una within Nigeria will join us. I thank Una will join us on YouTube. Ẹ̀yin ará wa nìbàdàn. Professor Laride Omo Oshe joining me from Ilorin all the way. Thank you, Jex. I will see you. I will talk to you after the program, okay, Doc? So I want to thank everybody. Dr. Nana, you want to give a vote of thanks?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. As we all are here, we are Nigerians, and I think because we truly love our country, that's the reason why we are here. I thank Dr. Jeku. I thank you a lot for taking now time from your very busy schedule to join us. I thank you, Mr. Richard. Thank you so much. Pastor Emeka, thank you, Professor Larinde, and everyone, Babatunde. I thank you all for joining us. Ajibola, I thank you also for joining us. I know that as scholars, we always know that problem exists. My own is the solution. We are just looking for a way out, because there's always a solution somewhere, somehow. And the reason why this program is truly focused on the youths, because they are the only one who can rise in Nigeria and hold all these leaders accountable for everything that they are saying. Just like Barrister Baba Tunde just spoke. The investigative journalism, they are not doing their job in Nigeria. It's just about the corruption thing that all the Nigerians know about. If we can start changing mindsets, then things will start working, because here, as big as US is, it is the journalists that are making things work. They hold them accountable for whatever they promise. They hold them accountable for what is talked about. They hold them accountable for what they're supposed to do. So if we start doing that, things will start working out well. I also subscribe to that subsistence farming. I do, because when I was growing up in our backyard, I believe that most people that are living in Nigeria, especially.
Well, I think we've come to the end of it. It's been a good show. Like I rightly said in my closing remark, change comes through conversations. Change comes through suggestions and solutions. Change comes through providing or preferring solutions to identified problems, such as we've listed tonight. We won't solve the problems we have highlighted tonight, but one thing is certain: we're living here tonight, a lot of us challenged to begin to ask deep, soul-searching questions as to what difference we can make in our small areas of influence, taking on board some of the commentaries and feedback and inputs we've listened to see how we can begin to channel them through the relevant authorities that we have relationship with or that we are connected with back home. It's only when we do this as a collective force of good. That's when we will make change. There are things we just cannot change for the sake of it because the system is so entrenched and the system is stronger than you and I. However, let's make change that will impact humanity at the level where we have influence. So that would be my closing remark, but it looks like they're back. They're back. Okay.
And so everybody now
Dr.
see
Chris,
why I call you chairman.
Dr. Chris.
Yes, everybody now see why
Dr.
I call you
Chris,
chairman.
yeah. I just want to say something. The other guy just said something about good leadership. So today I'm telling you that I'll be contesting we are bringing we are campaigning for a presidential candidate. I'm the coordinator in Texas. And likely, if the party will adopt me, I will be in contesting for a position very soon. So we want the best of the best, and hopefully there will be
No, go ahead.
So hopefully there will be no restriction in making Nigeria better. We want to make it better, and all the wealth and everything, we're not going to die with it. So we just want to do our best, and if the government or Nigerian people will accept us, we will get into it. So Dr. Chris, I will let you know about the political maneuvering that will be coming up very soon for 2023.
No problem, Mr. Kadiri. I know this is a platform for us to project the next generation of leaders. And I can tell you right now that Jex, my brother that you see over there, is one of the people we are looking up to. Those are the new generation leaders we want to start bringing out. I bring my chairman here to see some set of new leaders that I'm trying to work with to build a new system in Nigeria. I have Professor Larinde, and I want to thank them for coming in. Thank you so much, Mr. Kadiri, for announcing this here. Over to Dr. Nana now. Dr. Nana, please give a vote of thanks.
Well, like I was talking about, I want to say thank you to everyone that was able to sign in today. The message here is to the youth, actually. We all come here as educators, scholars, professors, and with a whole lot of experiences. But whatever we are saying here, we need the mindset of Nigerian youth to be changed. We need the authorities, like the government, to start doing what they are supposed to do. So with this message is here, reaching out the youth, that we put the right people in position from the grassroots. I know that Dr. Ozemene talked about that. That is where the whole thing is going to start from. So the mindset of the youth, we need to change by voting the right people in the positions. Once we get that, all those policies that we are talking about that is being stored somewhere and not being enacted and becoming laws, we start working. And that's all I need to say. Thank you all. And we look forward to another opportunity to bring all of you here again. And this message, I can tell you that is going around and things are going to start changing soon in Nigeria. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.